Hello friends, today we are going to discuss about tuning fork tests. Myself PT Vinayagar, I am an audiologist and speech therapist. So what are the contents under tuning fork tests we are going to discuss? Gross anatomy of human ear, physiology of hearing, a glimpse, air conduction and bone conduction, types of hearing loss, and finally tuning fork tests. So gross anatomy of human ear. We need to know the parts of the ear. First, grossly, it is divided into three parts. That is outer ear, middle ear and inner ear. In outer ear, the single flap of cartilage, that is your pinna, then external auditory canal. So these two comprises of outer ear, whereas middle ear, the tympanic membrane, malleus, incus and stapes, the smallest bone in the human body. These comprises of your middle ear. So your middle ear has three bones and it is a air filled cavity. It is very important that it is an air filled cavity. Then moving on to inner ear. In inner ear there are two systems. One is vestibular system and cochlear system. That is vestibular system has three semicircular canal in each ear. Then vestibule. So these two major role in maintaining the posture and equilibrium. This doesn't have or minimal role in hearing. Then your cochlea and your auditory nerve, that is your statoacoustic nerve, eighth nerve. Okay, these are the parts of the human ear. Then we will move on to the physiology of the human ear. A precise glimpse about the physiology. Here you see the same picture again. When the sound waves enter into the outer ear, it will pass on to the external auditory canal and it will hit the tympanic membrane in the middle ear. Okay, so this is acoustic, that is a sound energy. Then this sound, we know that sound is a disturbance of air molecules. The sound particles, the disturbance in the air molecules is the sound. So this acoustic energy is now transferred to mechanical vibration. So your tympanic membrane will vibrate. Subsequently, the three bones, in previous slide we discussed the middle ear consists of three bones, that is malleus, incus and stapes. This is a chain, so we call it as ossicular chain. So this chain will subsequently vibrate. So here it is a mechanical vibration. Now when it enters into the inner ear, there mechanical is converted to your hydraulic, because in inner ear we have fluid. So now I told you already in the previous slide, middle ear is a air filled chamber, whereas inner ear has fluid filled, your perilimb and endolimb. So here it is hydraulic. Then hydraulic to chemical. When the stapes moves inward and outward of the oval window, the basilar membrane in the cochlea will set into vibration. So here the vibration will lead to generation of potentials. In previous video we discussed the cochlear potentials. So there the neurotransmitter release, that is called chemical, because the electrolytes, sodium and potassium, neurotransmitter release, all are chemicals. So here hydraulic to chemical, that we are not shown in the picture. Then it is finally it is our signal is converted into electrical. So here the auditory nerve takes our speech or whatever the sound, it ultimately it will sent to the brain or to the brainstem through electric impulses. So acoustic to mechanical, mechanical to hydraulic, hydraulic to chemical, and finally it is electric output. Now we need to know the pathways of conduction, how the sound is conducted to the our human ear. So first one is air conduction and bone conduction. There are two ways of conduction. So first we will see the air conduction. In air conduction, the sound will travel to the outer ear, middle ear, inner ear and nerve. Whereas in the bone conduction, it will directly stimulate. So here that is air conduction. Whatever the violet waveform shown is air conduction pathway. Whereas in bone conduction, it directly stimulates the cochlea and nerve. So it bypasses the outer and middle ear. This is bone conduction. Then we'll move on to the types of hearing loss. So to study about the types of hearing loss, we need to know the two compartments of the hearing. The first compartment is conductive compartment, that is the outer and middle ear. Then the sensorineural compartment, that is your inner ear and the acoustic nerve, statoacoustic nerve, it is the eighth nerve. So the major role of outer and middle ear is conduction of the sound. So the sound will conduct. So the outer and middle ear role is efficient transmission of the sound. Whereas your sensorineural compartment, that is our cochlea and nerve, is majorly responsible for processing of the sound. What is the sound? Whether it is a pure tone or a speech or noise, these frequency specific informations are coded in the cochlea and nerve. So when you have a problem in outer ear or middle ear, we will have conductive hearing loss because our conduction of sound is impaired. For example, the most common is impacted earwax. When the wax forms more, when it occludes, completely block the ear canal such a way that it will disrupt the conduction of sound, it will lead to conductive hearing loss. So there are many other causes. Similarly, if any problem or defect in your cochlea or in the nerve or in the both cochlea and nerve, it will lead to sensorineural hearing loss. So the ear majorly is processing of sound will be affected. The classic example is presbyacusis, age-related hearing loss. So the receptors, in previous video we discussed, the receptors are the nerve endings, the specialized cells. For example, in eye, rods and cones are the receptors. Similarly, in ear, the outer and inner hair cells are the receptors. So aging will have the general health condition will be deteriorated for aged persons. So how the eyes, the visual ability will decline. Similarly, our hearing also will deteriorate in the older population. So there your hair cells, the number of hair cells are, the functioning of the hair cells may be decline. So it will lead to sensorineural hearing loss. Suppose if a person will have both conductive and sensorineural compartment is affected, both are affected, then it will lead to, so if the outer ear or middle ear and the inner ear or nerve, when these two both compartments are affected, then it will lead to mixed hearing loss, where his conductive compartment is affected and also the sensory compartment is also affected. Now we are actually moving on to the tuning fork test. Before going to tuning fork test, what is tuning fork? So tuning fork, this is the tuning fork. Tuning forks are available in different frequencies. That means the tuning fork is made up of magnesium, steel or aluminium. So this tuning fork will generate the single frequency tone. That means in natural situation we always hear a speech, noise or complex tones. We never hear a single frequency tone. It has to be created artificially, like using the tuning fork. So the energy concentration will be at single frequency, for example 512 hertz or 1 kilohertz. That frequency of sound is only will be generated using tuning fork. The parts of the tuning fork are the two tines and the stem. See, these two are the tines, whereas the bottom one is the stem. So when the tuning fork is struck against an elbow or a bone or wood, the tuning fork will vibrate. The tines of the tuning fork will vibrate from one another such that it will create the disturbance in the surrounding air molecules, which will lead to generation of sound at single frequency. So most commonly used is the 512 Hz tuning fork. So now we will move on to the tuning fork tests. The first test what are the tuning fork tests? Before knowing, we need to know the list of tests. That is the Squabach test, Rinne test, Bing test and Weber test. First we will discuss about the Squabach test. The Squabach test is introduced in 1980. It is a bone conduction test. So we know that bone conduction pathway will assess the cochlea and the nerve. So here our area of interest is also cochlea and nerve because it is a bone conduction test. Okay. Then now the tuning fork is set into vibration. So when the tuning fork is struck against our elbow, it is set into vibration. Now the sound is generated and the stem is placed alternatively against the mastoid process of the patient and of the examiner. So here patient and examiner both are involved in the test. So he will test the first he will place the tuning fork on the mastoid of the patient alternately and he will place on his examiner. They have to hear the sound. So what is the instruction given to the client? So here he has to tell when the sound gets feeble or not able to hear the tone. So first the examiner will keep the tuning fork on his head and he will ask whether he can able to hear. The client will say yes. Then he will switch back to his ear, that is examiner's ear. Then he will listen whether he can able to hear. Now he also can able to hear. Now again he will place on the patient's mastoid area, that is the bulgy portion behind the ear, that is mastoid. Again he will say yes. Then again he will check. He will also hear. Then again he will switch on to the patient. Now if the client says no, immediately our examiner will check whether he can able to hear after the client says no. So if the examiner also cannot able to hear, that means both patient and examiner said at the same time, that means most probably a normal hearing. We will discuss the interpretation. So if the patient says no and the examiner can able to hear, after the patient says no, he will note down the time in seconds. He will note down the time that the examiner can hear even after the patient says no. Okay. So instruction will be each time when the tuning fork is placed on your mastoid or placed on your ear, you need to tell me whether you can able to hear the tone. Since the vibrating energy of the tuning fork decreases over time, we know that the tuning fork will generate a sound only when the tines are vibrating. So it has to stop at some point because it has to come to its original resting position, right? So till the time we can able to hear the sound. So as soon as the patient says no, immediately the examiner places the tuning fork on his or her mastoid and notes the number of seconds the tone is audible after the patient stops hearing it. So in previous slide I explained. So he need to note down the number of seconds the tone is audible even after the patient stops hearing it. If the examiner and patient says no at the same time, maybe this is called normal squawback. Maybe both have normal hearing. In case of sensorineural hearing loss, because we know that it is a test of bone conduction, so it checks the sensorineural pathway. So the patient stop hearing the sound much sooner than the examiner because he is having impaired bone conduction pathway. That time it is called diminished squawback. So the patient will say, the patient cannot able to hear, or he may say no much sooner than the examiner. So if the examiner can able to hear the sound after 10 seconds, that means patient said no, then the examiner is still hearing till 10 seconds, then the patient hearing is diminished to 10 seconds. In some conductive hearing loss, the patient hearing in the low pitch range may appear to be better than normal because due to occlusion effect, the patient can hear better than the examiner because he is having the conductive hearing loss. In some low pitch range, he can able to hear more than normal. Then it is called prolonged squawback. So now the test is completed. What is the disadvantage? So here the examiner should have normal hearing because we are going to compare the examiner's hearing and with the patient hearing. Then in case of mixed hearing loss, it is very difficult because we only checking the bone conduction pathway. In case of bilateral hearing loss, the patient may tend to hear in better ear, leading to false normal squawback. So always in bone conduction testing, the stimulation will happen to both the cochlea. So it is the more tendency to respond in the non-test ear. And the squawback test is not used widely in clinics. So now we complete our first test, that is squawback test. Now we will move on to the other test, that is Rinne test. Rinne test compares patients' hearing sensitivity by bone conduction to their sensitivity by air conduction. So now we are going to check both the conduction and both the conduction, that is air and bone, and we are going to compare which one is louder. So the instruction will be, the client has to tell when he or she can hear the sound louder. This is very important. Louder is very important here because typically a normal hearing client will hear the air conduction mechanism louder compared to bone conduction mechanism. So here, that is when the tuning fork is placed nearer to the entrance of the ear or the mastoid process. You need to say when the tuning fork is placed near to the entrance of the ear or when the tuning fork is placed on the mastoid process. Among the two, which one the client can able to hear louder? He has to say that. So here you can see the tuning fork is placed near to the ear. It is not touching the ear. Okay, kindly note that the tuning fork should not touch the ear while stimulating AC. Whereas in bone conduction, while checking bone conduction, the stem has to be placed firmly on the mastoid. So the interpretation, you can see when the air conduction is louder than bone conduction, it may tells that it is a positive Rinne, so it may indicate normal hearing, or in case of sensorineural hearing loss. In case of bilateral sensorineural hearing loss, not bilateral, in case of sensorineural hearing loss, also you can able to hear the air conduction better. So if the patient says bone conduction better than or louder than air conduction, that is negative Rene. In which cases we will get more than mild conductive hearing loss. He will have a louder perception in bone conduction. Then we need to discuss about false negative Rene. When the inner ear is not deliberately being tested response to the tone, that means my area of interest is one ear, but the response from the other ear. So that is what we are given. For example, when we are testing the right ear. So first I will strike the tuning fork and I will place the tuning fork near to the entrance of the ear of right ear. So now right ear AC is checked. Then I will place it with the right BC. While testing BC, since it stimulates both the cochlea, there may be a high chance of response from the other ear. Erroneous result will happen. That is the false negative Rene. Now he may say that I can hear bone conduction better, but possibly it will come from the other ear. That time negative Rene, but it is a false negative Rene. Now we will move on to the other test, that is Bing test. In Bing test, when persons with normal hearing close off the opening, that means I am closing the opening of the ear canal using the natal flap, the loudness of the tone presented by bone conduction increases. That means when I strike the tuning fork and I placed on firmly on the mastoid, I can hear the tone. If I close the air conduction pathway or using the metal flap, then the loudness of the tone will be increased. This is called occlusion effect. This is primarily for the low pitched sounds. So when performing the Bing test, the tuning fork handle is held to the mastoid process behind the ear while the examiner alternatively closes and opens. Okay, this is very important. So the examiner will close the client's ear with finger, close and open. He will close and open alternatively such that the perception will be a pulsating sound. We will see the interpretation. Sounds seem to be louder and softer. That means positive Bing. So even for a normal hearing, when he closes his ear, he may when he closes the air conduction, so he may hear louder at bone conduction. So there will be an increase and decrease. So that seems in normal hearing or in case of sensorineural hearing loss. If the client says no change in the loudness of sound, that is negative Bing. It is shown in conductive hearing loss, because since he is having the conduction problem in the air conduction, both the closing will not have any effect. The disadvantage is here participation of the non-test ear, because all the bone conduction tests there may be a participation of the other ear. Now Weber test. Weber test is a very important test and it is routinely used in clinics. It is a test of lateralization. So in this test, the tuning fork is set into vibration and the stem is placed on the midline of the patient's skull. So here it is important. We are not testing in the right ear or left ear. Now we are placing the tuning fork on the midline of the patient's skull or forehead. Now the instruction given to the client is he has to state where he or she hear the tone. That is to the left ear or to the right ear or in the both ears or midline. So we need to say all the possible options that he may hear. So here you see how we test the the right ear, left ear is there. So we are going to place the stem of the, this is the stem we already discussed. It is firmly placed on the midline or the forehead. Okay, now whether he can able to hear in right ear or left ear or in both or midline, that he need to hear, the client has to respond. So the interpretation is, if the midline sensation, or he say I can hear equally loud in both ears, I am not able to distinguish which ear I can hear. That means he may have normal hearing or equal amount of hearing loss in both ears, whether it is a conductive, sensitive or mixed. If there is a equal amount of loss, that is a symmetrical hearing loss, he may have midline sensation. In case of unilateral sensorineural hearing loss, if he say, for example, he is having a right ear sensorineural hearing loss, whereas left ear is normal hearing. So he will hear in the left ear because left ear is the better ear. So in case of sensorineural hearing loss, he will lateralize, the sound will lateralize to better ear. Whereas in case of conductive hearing loss, if he is having a right ear as conductive hearing loss, then the sound will lateralize to the poorer ear, so to the right ear only, where in which ear he is having conductive hearing loss, that ear it will lateralize. So midline sensation, how the midline sensation is happening, because here we need to know the Stenger principle. Stenger principle says that when you are giving a two identical tones in all ways, that means it is a 1 kilohertz frequency, and left ear also 1 kilohertz frequency with the same rarefaction or the same phase, same time. So is introduced simultaneously in both ears, only the louder tone will be perceived. So in which ear he can able to hear louder? If he is having a bilateral asymmetrical sensorineural hearing loss, in which ear he is having a perception of the louder tone, he will perceive. So this principle is very important in case of testing the functional hearing loss. Okay. So the Weber test is quick, easy and often helpful. So even the Weber, I already told that Weber test is routinely used in the clinics, and the disadvantage is interpretation of the Weber test is also difficult in mixed hearing loss. So my teacher taught me that the Weber can detect even 5 dB discrepancy among the two ears. If he is having a 5 dB difference in right and left ear, it can able to detect. That's why it is routinely used. So thank you for your patient listening, and my sincere thanks to all my teachers who taught me audiology. Hope you enjoyed the video. For more videos, subscribe our channel. Thank you.